The classic sitcom Dennis the Menace brought joy and laughter into countless American homes during its original run from 1959 to 1963. Centered around the lovable troublemaker Dennis Mitchell, the show became an iconic piece of TV history. But behind the smiles and timeless humor lies a more somber reality. Many of the talented actors who helped shape this unforgettable series have since passed away, some after long lives, others under tragic or untold circumstances. In this video, we take a closer look at the personal lives, careers, and heartbreaking deaths of the cast members who made Dennis the Menace a household name. Herbert Anderson was born on March 30, 1917, and took on the role of Henry Mitchell in 1959 at the age of 42. On screen, he embodied the calm, suburban patriarch, but behind the scenes, Anderson's affable image masked years of internal conflict. Though never publicly disgraced, Anderson reportedly resented his typecasting and quietly battled alcoholism in the 1960s, often hiding whiskey bottles in his dressing room toilet tank. Cast and crew allegedly endured his unpredictable moods, ranging from excessive generosity to cold withdrawal. His career waned as studios moved toward younger, edgier stars, leaving Anderson bitter. Privately, his marriage grew strained, with rumors of infidelity whispered among neighbors in Palm Springs. He lived reclusively in his final decade, estranged from former co-stars, attending therapy for unresolved childhood trauma stemming from a domineering father. Anderson died on June 11, 1994, at the age of 77 from congestive heart failure, largely forgotten by the industry he once charmed. Billy Booth, born November 7, 1949, was only 10 when he began playing Tommy Anderson in 1959. A child star adored on screen, Booth was reportedly exploited behind the camera. His parents pushed him into relentless audition cycles, leading to anxiety and eventual estrangement from them in adulthood. Hollywood insiders noted how he developed a stutter from childhood pressure, requiring coaching before every scene. After the show, he vanished from acting, citing behind-the-scenes mistreatment and the trauma of early fame. Despite becoming a lawyer, his adult life was haunted by secrecy. Colleagues noted his aversion to photos and public appearances, with rumors surfacing of a brief disappearance in the 1990s after a mental breakdown. He was married briefly but lived the latter half of his life alone, reportedly battling chronic depression. Booth died of liver complications on December 31, 2006, at age 57, his death unceremoniously reported, with no public memorial. Gloria Henry was born on April 2, 1923, and stepped into the role of Alice Mitchell in 1959 at 36. On television, she radiated maternal serenity, but in Hollywood circles, she was known for her icy ambition. Off-camera, Henry was embroiled in an intensely toxic marriage with architect Craig Elwood, marked by violent arguments and infidelities on both sides. Their bitter divorce dragged out for years, costing Henry custody battles and emotional exhaustion. Studio insiders whispered of her off-putting diva behavior. She allegedly demanded younger actresses be fired for outshining her in screen tests. Her career floundered post-Dennis as she was blacklisted by a major producer she reportedly slapped during an on-set confrontation over sexist remarks. Behind closed doors, Henry also struggled with depression and became heavily reliant on tranquilizers throughout the 70s. She died on April 3, 2021, aged 98, just one day after her birthday, with few attendees at her private funeral. Joseph Karns, born February 12, 1907, debuted as George Wilson at 52, a role he played with impeccable comedic timing. Yet behind his crusty on-screen persona lurked obsessive personal demons. Known for his compulsive dieting, Karns allegedly subjected himself to bizarre regimens, including cabbage-only weeks and fasting while filming, driven by body image paranoia. Castmates described him as brilliant but volatile. He once stormed off set over a minor script change and didn't speak to the director for days. His home life was no less dramatic. A lifelong bachelor, he was rumored to have lived with his domineering mother well into his 40s, fostering strange eccentricities. Studio gossip suggested repressed sexual identity struggles, which may have contributed to his emotional instability. Karns collapsed and died suddenly on February 17, 1962, just days after his 55th birthday, from a cerebral hemorrhage. His death, shrouded in secrecy, fueled rumors that his crash diet had fatally weakened him. Gavin Gordon, born February 20, 1906, played John Wilson in Dennis the Menace in 1962 at the age of 56. His on-screen persona was grumpy but lovable, a character that mirrored his off-screen tendency to dominate sets with an iron sense of comedic control. While audiences adored his booming delivery and crusty charm, few knew the chaos brewing behind the scenes. Gordon was notorious for his obsessive perfectionism, once halting production for hours because a prop chair squeaked too cheerfully. Although never embroiled in tabloid scandals, younger co-stars privately described him as unapproachable and crushing, with at least two reportedly requesting not to work alone with him due to his explosive temper. His career, though steady, dipped after Dennis the Menace ended. Casting directors quietly labeled him too rigid for ensemble work. Personally, he lived reclusively with his wife in Borrego Springs, shunning public appearances and interviews for nearly 2 decades. Gordon died of lung cancer on June 30, 1995, at age 89. Sylvia Field, born February 14, 1901, joined Dennis the Menace at age 58, playing the ever-sweet Martha Wilson. But off-screen, Field was anything but soft. Behind her grandmotherly charm was a fiercely manipulative presence who reportedly meddled in casting decisions and used her connection to CBS executives to secure screen time. Known to scold child actors for flubbing lines, she allegedly feuded with co-star Gloria Henry over billing order. Field's career had stalled prior to Dennis, partly due to a scandalous 1940s affair with a married Broadway director that tanked her stage reputation. Her personal life was no less rocky. She endured a publicly humiliating divorce in the early 50s when her husband left her for a younger starlet. Friends described her as lonely and controlling, often driving away companions with her biting sarcasm and obsession with youth. Sylvia Field died on July 31, 1998, at age 97, nearly forgotten, her legacy eclipsed by the characters she once controlled with an iron smile. Sarah Seagar, born July 1, 1914, joined Dennis the Menace in 1962 as Eloise Wilson at age 48. On screen, she was the epitome of grace and maternal patience, often playing peacemaker between Dennis and her irascible husband. Off-screen, however, Seagar's life was riddled with unresolved grief and emotional turmoil. Her marriage to actor Ezra Stone was quietly strained by his multiple infidelities, which she endured for the sake of their children, later describing her marriage as a performance without applause. Professionally, she was haunted by living in the shadow of her more famous sister, actress Miriam Seagar, a source of lifelong insecurity. Seagar battled severe depression in her final years, reportedly undergoing electroshock therapy after a nervous breakdown in the late 1960s, a secret buried by her family. Despite public perceptions of wholesomeness, she was known to friends as deeply melancholic and reclusive. She died from a cerebral hemorrhage on August 12, 1990, at age 76, in near total obscurity. Willard Waterman, born August 29, 1914, appeared as Otis Quigley from 1959 at age 45. Though his character was generous and cheerful, Waterman's real life was far from idyllic. Best known for inheriting the title role on The Great Gildersleeve, his career was forever marred by comparisons to his predecessor Harold Peary. The studio's choice to replace Peary sparked fan outrage, and Waterman endured years of hate mail, public jeering, and a psychological burden he never shook. Financially stable but emotionally scarred, he was known for his paranoia, installing multiple locks on his dressing room and refusing to socialize with other actors. His marriage dissolved quietly in the 1970s, allegedly due to his compulsive need for solitude. Waterman also struggled with an untreated hoarding disorder, with neighbors later reporting the interior of his home was unlivable. He died on February 2, 1995, at age 80, a man long tormented by a legacy he never truly claimed. George Caesar, born July 28, 1912, played Sergeant Theodore Mooney starting in 1960 at age 48. Known for portraying stoic authority figures with a soft side, his real-life persona was far less disciplined. Caesar's career was marked by frustration. He longed for leading roles but was continually typecast in supporting bits, a reality that reportedly drove him to heavy drinking. He was blacklisted from several studio lots in the early 1950s after clashing with producers over demeaning parts and once publicly accused a casting agent of sabotaging his chances. Privately, Caesar had a turbulent home life. He went through 2 secret divorces, the second ending in a violent dispute that nearly landed him in jail. In his later years, he struggled with cirrhosis and depression, retreating from Hollywood entirely. Rumors circulated of financial ruin and a failed attempt to open a bar in Van Nuys. He died on June 13, 1979, at 66, a forgotten figure in a city he once believed owed him more. Irene Tedro, born August 3, 1907, debuted as Mrs. Elkins in 1959 at age 52. Her character was nosy but harmless, a sharp contrast to the intimidating aura she carried off-screen. Tedro, classically trained and fiercely intellectual, had a reputation for undermining younger actresses she considered unworthy, often rewriting dialogue and pulling rank with directors. While revered on stage, her television career suffered from accusations of being impossible to direct, especially on live sets. Colleagues whispered about her biting sarcasm and a notorious falling out with a fellow Dennis actor, resulting in a never-explained rewrite of an entire subplot. She never married, claiming she had no time for mediocrity, but rumors swirled of a years-long affair with a married playwright, leading to her temporary blackballing from the American theater circuit in the early 60s. She battled chronic illness throughout her later life, including a debilitating spinal condition that left her in constant pain. Tedro died on March 10, 1995, at age 87, surrounded by scripts no one would ever read again. Charles Seel, born April 29, 1897, played Mr. Crinky beginning in 1960 at age 63. The gruff newspaper editor he portrayed masked the deep frustration Seel harbored with the entertainment industry. Though his face was familiar, his name rarely was, an obscurity he privately resented. Behind his affable image lay a history of financial hardship due to chronic gambling, which once forced him to sell his home in the 1950s. Seel was twice sued for unpaid debts, and some coworkers claimed he borrowed money under false pretenses. Though married, he was rumored to frequent burlesque shows and speakeasies well into his 60s. He was notoriously difficult on set, especially with younger actors, reportedly mocking their talent and belittling them in front of crew. After a bar brawl in 1962 left him with a broken hand, producers allegedly minimized his screen time. He died on April 19, 1980, at the age of 82, largely forgotten by the industry he'd once desperately tried to dominate. Mary Wickes, born June 13, 1910, portrayed Miss Esther Cathcart in Dennis the Menace in 1959 at age 49. Her character exuded prim propriety with a sharp tongue, embodying the stern disciplinarian archetype with an undercurrent of reluctant warmth. Wickes thrived in typecast roles but privately loathed being pigeonholed, allegedly clashing with directors who limited her range. While Hollywood adored her wit, insiders whispered of her bitter disillusionment with the industry's shallow appreciation of talent. Never married, she had deep but troubled friendships, particularly with fellow actress Doris Day, whose late-life animal hoarding scandal Wickes supposedly tried to intervene in. Friends said she battled loneliness and buried pain over never publicly embracing her rumored sexuality, fearing career suicide in 1950s Hollywood. Despite her public composure, she was known to harshly criticize co-stars behind closed doors, particularly those who lacked her stage discipline. She died October 22, 1995, at age 85 from complications following surgery. Charles Lane, born January 26, 1905, played Lawrence Finch in 1960 at age 55. Often cast as the bitter bureaucrat, Lane's off-screen life bore ironic resemblance. A relentless perfectionist, he terrorized directors with obsessive script notes and once halted production over a single line he found logically absurd. Though married for decades, whispers of emotional neglect and cold detachment surrounded his home life, with one biographer alleging that Lane spent more time with his cat than his children. While admired for his union work with the Screen Actors Guild, he was also quietly loathed by many actors for his rigid stance against what he saw as emotional indulgence in performance, reportedly calling Marlon Brando's acting vomit. A staunch atheist, he once stormed out of a studio prayer meeting, calling it sentimental delusion. Though he never courted public scandal, he left behind a legacy marked by intellectual arrogance, fierce independence, and emotional distance. He died on July 9, 2007, at the age of 102, outliving most of his critics. Robert B. Williams, born September 23, 1904, played the affable Mr. Dorfman in Dennis the Menace in 1959 at age 55. His character was light-hearted and lovable, but Williams was infamous within industry circles for his sharp tongue and cold detachment. Though credited in over 100 productions, he never managed to escape supporting roles, something he deeply resented. There were murmurs of backstage feuds and drinking on set, and once, a young assistant filed a quiet complaint over inappropriate comments. It disappeared quickly. He had a rocky marriage with his only wife, who left him in the 60s citing emotional cruelty. Estranged from his only child, who later spoke out about years of emotional neglect, Williams spent the last decade of his life clinging to minor roles and battling arthritis that made performance physically painful. He retreated into isolation, rarely appearing in public and obsessively rewriting memoir drafts he never published. He died June 17, 1978, in Orange County, at the age of 73 from heart failure, a faded name whose bitterness never healed. Lawrence Haden, born October 25, 1922, played Charles Brady in Dennis the Menace in 1961 at age 39. His character served as a foil to Dennis's chaotic energy, orderly, precise, and easily flustered by youthful antics. But behind the composed screen persona was a man whose life spiraled in private. Though he maintained a respectable TV presence, Haden's career plateaued after the 70s, a slow fade marked by unacknowledged bitterness. Close colleagues whispered about his struggle with undiagnosed bipolar episodes that led to long, inexplicable absences from sets. His marriage reportedly became strained due to his increasing emotional volatility. Though no official records confirmed violence, insiders mentioned late-night calls to his residence over domestic disturbances. His devotion to acting often masked severe inner turmoil, and as the industry turned toward younger stars, Haden became isolated. His final years were clouded by cognitive decline due to Lewy body disease, which robbed him of speech and recognition, ironic for a man once praised for poise and eloquence. He died May 10, 2013, at age 90. Bob Hastings, born April 18, 1925, portrayed Coach Gilmore in Dennis the Menace in 1961 at age 36, exuding charm and cheer on screen. But Hastings's life was shadowed by a darker narrative of behind-the-scenes manipulation and unspoken industry grudges. Though beloved by fans, fellow voice actors described him as ruthlessly competitive, undercutting colleagues for roles and lobbying producers to blackball rivals. A 1977 scandal involving the alleged harassment of a young female radio assistant was buried, she later recanted, but insiders suggest pressure from Hastings' agent may have influenced her decision. Despite being married with children, Hastings was rumored to have had multiple affairs during his peak years, often with co-stars. One affair allegedly ended in an on-set screaming match that halted production for a day. Though these stories rarely reached the tabloids, they were common knowledge in entertainment circles. He died on June 30, 2014, at 89, from prostate cancer, respected by fans, but remembered by peers with a mix of admiration and wariness. Alan Huitt, born January 21, 1915, portrayed Alistair St. Clair in 1960 at the age of 45. In Dennis the Menace, his character exuded authority and charm, polished, mannered, and ever so slightly condescending, embodying the upper-crust foil to the neighborhood's chaos. But behind the cultivated poise, Huitt harbored a bitterness few knew. While hailed for championing actors' rights, privately he waged battles with studio execs, earning a quiet blacklist from several producers after an infamous shouting match during a Broadway negotiation in the late 50s. Though he never married, whispers of multiple failed engagements and intense jealousy over the success of others trailed him for decades. He was known to obsessively rewrite co-stars' lines behind their backs, and was quietly banned from 2 theater companies for overbearing behavior. Friends recalled his paranoia in his later years, convinced others were sabotaging his auditions. On November 7, 1986, he died of cancer at 71. Helen Cleb, born January 6, 1907, brought warmth to the role of Mrs. Holland in Dennis the Menace in 1959 at age 52. Known for her grandmotherly aura, Cleb lived a life far from the innocent screen roles she often played. Sources close to her described a secretive personality, fiercely guarded and emotionally distant. Her marriage to fellow actor George N. Nyes was riddled with tension, publicly peaceful, but privately cold, with Cleb allegedly retreating into prolonged silences and bouts of obsessive ritual behavior. She was known to isolate herself between jobs, spending months alone with no explanation. In her youth, she had a nervous breakdown after a failed Broadway debut, something she never publicly addressed. Her professional demeanor masked a deep fear of rejection that led her to hoard scripts and obsessively rewatch her own performances, noting failures no one else saw. Helen Cleb died quietly on December 28, 2003, at the age of 96, her long life a testament to endurance, but haunted by a need for perfection that left her profoundly lonely. Norman Levit, born December 1, 1913, played Brown in 1959 when he was 46. His character was bumbling but good-hearted, a background figure meant to make Dennis shine brighter. Yet off-camera, Levit's quiet demeanor masked a lifelong struggle with mental illness. Diagnosed with severe depression in the late 40s, he was institutionalized twice, though this was kept from the public. His career declined rapidly after being fired mid-season from a 1964 sitcom, allegedly due to emotional instability. Though he married young, his wife left him after their son publicly accused Levit of being a ghost father, present but emotionally vacant. By the 80s, dementia had begun to erode what was left of his fragile peace, and he spent his last years in a care facility, mostly forgotten by the industry he once served. He died of dehydration and dementia complications on December 11, 2005, at the age of 92. Will Wright, born March 26, 1894, took on the role of Mr. Merivale in 1959 at age 65. On screen, he was the archetypal crank with a heart of gold, but off-screen, Wright's reputation was far murkier. Though known to many as affable, several assistants claimed he was prone to explosive temper tantrums, often hurling scripts across the room during rehearsals. His personal life was scarred by scandal. In 1953, he was named in a police report investigating a high-stakes poker ring involving Hollywood elites. Though never charged, the incident led to his quiet removal from 2 major studio rosters. Married twice, Both unions ended disastrously, the first in silence, the second amid public accusations of emotional cruelty and infidelity. He was rumored to have had an affair with a much younger aspiring actress, who later vanished from the industry entirely. Despite the public image of a lovable old grouch, Wright left behind a legacy steeped in tension, secrecy, and regret. He died of cancer on June 19, 1962, at 68. Forrest Lewis, born November 5, 1899, stepped into the shoes of Mr. Prince in 1960 at age 61. While his character radiated warmth and geniality, the real Lewis was a man haunted by obscurity. A theater veteran with Broadway dreams, he never achieved the fame he craved. He battled intense resentment toward younger actors, often sabotaging auditions for roles he believed were stolen from him. Married 3 times, each ending in acrimonious divorce, he was estranged from all 5 of his children, 2 of whom publicly disavowed him in interviews. A gambling addict for much of his life, Lewis lost his house in the 50s and lived in rented rooms, bouncing checks and dodging creditors. His tendency to berate crew members on set led to multiple confrontations, one of which ended with a prop assistant quitting mid-season. Despite a prolific resume, he died broke and largely forgotten on June 2, 1977, at 77. Who's your favorite character in Dennis the Menace? How do you feel knowing that the actors have passed away? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much.